All right, I'm going to go ahead and go through the topic review for topic 4. I'm going to just go through each of the practice problems that were assigned to you for homework. So for this first one, lesson 4.1 was all about being able to create a scatter plot from data. So here's my data, and I'm going to put it onto this graph that they have for me. So my distance they have is my x variable, and my airfare is my y variable. So I'm going to plot these as xy coordinates. So I'm going to start with 200. So at 200, my airfare was 250. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to go through and graph these, and you can check to see if yours matched mine. Sorry, that's 250 and 300. And we have 300 and 275. And 350 and 150. Then we have 400 and 400. 450 and 425. So the only thing here that you have to be careful of is the scale. So notice that these are going by hundreds, but then these are going by 50s. So that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is they don't pay attention to the scales, and then when they graph, it turns out wrong. All right, so 500, 350. We have 550, 250. Then we have 600 and 475. And 700 and 325. And 750, 200. Okay. So looking at this data right here, mine's not perfect, but there's my points. Looking at it, it wants to know, is there a relationship between distance and airfare? There's no relationship here. There's not a line that I can draw through these points. They're not curving in a certain way. They're not going up in a certain direction. So for this one, I would say that there does not appear to be any pattern. So there is not a relationship. You can also talk about how there aren't any clusters, there aren't any gaps or any outliers, so there's not really anything that we can say that there's some sort of relationship going on. Okay. Lesson 2 is all about identifying the association. So you want to start by drawing a trend line. So I'm going to draw, and this is going to be really hard to do on my little device here, but I'm going to try and draw a line that goes through these points. Okay, and that's about it. But you want to find where the middle of these points are and draw a straight line that goes through them. I'm freehanding this, so mine's not very straight, but you should have used a ruler to go through the middle. Now, since this is going down from left to right, I'm going to say it has a negative association. It also appears to follow this line, so I can say that it's linear. And because these points are pretty far from the line, there's not a lot that are touching it, I'm going to say that it's a weak negative linear association. So if it's linear, you have to say if it's negative or positive, and weak or strong. For this one, there is not a straight line that I can draw through all of these points, since it has this curve going on. And since there's that curve going on, we just say that this is a nonlinear association. You do not have to say if it's positive or negative or strong or weak, you just say nonlinear. For lesson 3, They wanted you to use linear models to make predictions. So here they gave you the equation of y equals 6x plus 120 for that trend line that goes through the middle of the points. For number 1, it says if an employee earns $5.70, what is the expected number of copiers sold? If you look on the graph, $5.70, that's a dollar amount. That's the employee's wages, so that's their y. Versus the x is the number of copiers sold. And I want to know what is the number of copiers sold. So that's what I'm solving for, x. The information that they gave me was the wage, which is $5.70. So I'm going to plug in $5.70 for my wage, and I'm going to solve for x. So for this, I'm going to subtract 120 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 450 equals 6x. Divide both sides by 6. And I get x equals 75. Okay, so my answer would say that, I'm just going to answer it up here. The expected number of copiers sold is 75. Okay. As for number 2, they give me the 100 copiers and they want me to find the wage. So it's the opposite of the last problem. I have the x value and I need to find the y. So I'm going to plug in 100 for my x and solve for y. When I plug it in, I get 600 plus 120, which is 720. So I could say the expected wage is $720 for 100 copiers sold. Okay. For number 4, interpret two-way frequency tables. So the two-way frequency table shows the results of a random survey of movies watched by 100 students. Mrs. Leary said that according to the data, girls are more likely than boys to watch movie A. Is the statement true or false? So for this, you need to be looking at how many boys and how many girls watched movie A, and then you also need to look at how many boys and how many girls you surveyed total. Because since we didn't survey the same amount, we need to compare the ratios and not just how many. Because if you ask more girls, you're probably going to end up with more girls answering just for the fact that you asked more of them. So you need to compare it to the total. So to compare it, I'm going to compare for my boys 14 out of 45, and for my girls 16 out of 55. I'm going to divide those. When I divide 14 by 45, I get 0.311, and when I divide 16 by 55, I get 0.291. So looking at these two numbers, I can see that even though the number of girls was more, when I compare it to the total that I asked, there were actually more boys that watched movie A. So this statement would be false, because 14 out of 45 boys is greater than 16 out of 55 girls. The last lesson was all about making two-way relative frequency tables. So that's where you have to find the percent given a certain, whether they want you to find the total amount percent or the rows or the columns. For this one, they want us to make a two-way relative frequency table to show the distribution of data with respect to gender. So with respect to gender, my genders are in these two rows here. So this is a row problem. On your test, it will identify which one you're you're looking for, but if it doesn't, sometimes you have to look at the question and see what it's asking. This one wants with respect to gender, so you're looking at the 2 rows. So I'm going to make this table. And I'm going to have more rows going on here. Some things in here. Okay, I'm going to have green here, blue, yellow, and the total. And then I have male, female, and the total here. So I'm going to be finding the percents in relation to the totals in each row. So I'm going to be taking this 40 and dividing it by 80, or doing 40 out of 80 as a percent. So 40 divided by 80 gives me 0.5, and 0.5 as a percent is 50%. Okay, then we have for the blue, I'm going to take 24 and divide that by 80 as well. I get 0.3, and 0.3 as a percent is 30%. For yellow, I have 16, again 16 out of 80, which is 0.2, and 0.2 as a percent is 20%. When I total these 3 numbers up together, I should get 100% in my rows, since it was out of 80. Then you go on to the female row. The total in my female row is 120, so that's the number that I'm going to be using to find the percents for these numbers. So 30 out of 120, or 30 divided by 120, is 0.25, and 0.25 as a percent is 25%. Then we have 60 out of 120, which is 0.5, and 0.5 as a percent is 50%. And I already did 30 out of 120 and I got it to be 25, so I'm not going to do the work again for that one since it matched the green number. And when you add 50 plus 25 plus 25, you get 100%, which is what we want. And then the last one, they're all out of 200, so I'm going to be using 200 as my total. So I'm going to take 70 and divide it by 200. I get 0.35, and 0.35 as a percent is 35%. Then I have 84 out of 200. I get 0.42, which is 42%. And lastly, 46 divided by 200, which is 23 hundredths, or 0.23 as a percent is 23%. And when I add all 3 of those up, I get 100% as well. So these are the percents, the relative frequency table percents with respect to gender. And then they ask the question of what percent of cats that are female have blue eyes. So I'm going to look over at my cats that are female with blue eyes. Here's my cats that are female. Here's the blue eyes. So my percent would be 50% of cats that are female have blue eyes. Okay, and that's all the answers for your study guide. Make sure to look over these and look through your homework problems, and if you want extra credit to get your page 248 signed by a parent saying that you studied for your test. All right, see you tomorrow.